1, 2. There we go. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Saturday here at Darlington Raceway. In advance of this weekend's Cookout Southern 500, we are now joined by Joey Logano. Joey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate you spending some time with us. Before we take questions, obviously this race will be the end of the regular season. Next week we'll officially kick off the playoffs. You've been in this position many times. If you don't mind, just share with us a little bit of how much, this ends one part of the season and next week starts, another part for your team.
Yeah, in a way it's kind of a welcoming end of this part of the season as you look forward to the playoffs. Everyone's always excited about the playoffs. There's so much opportunity to reach the ultimate goal, which is the championship. Right, and there's 16 teams that have earned a right to be there. We'll figure out the last one or two here this weekend, obviously, and it'll be an exciting 10 weeks, as it always is, with a lot of stories for you guys to talk about. Lord knows what they'll be, but I'm sure there will be stories because there always is. So it'll be fun and interesting, and hopefully at the end of the 10 weeks in Phoenix, we're celebrating.
All right, well, go ahead for questions. If you have a question, raise your hand, and we'll start with Lee and go to Seth.
Lee Spencer, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio and Catchfence.com. When you think about that run Blaney went on last year, which came out of nowhere, how do you and Paul look at those last 10 races and say, okay, this might be our chance, this might be our chance, or do you look at it, is your strategy different?
I don't know if our strategy changes much. It kind of depends on what your position is as you go into the next race. What do you have to do to accomplish the ultimate goal? Which is always getting to the next round first, right? How do we get to the next round? I think the strategy at this point is pretty apparent to most, and it's easy to say, hard to do, right? First round's got a lot of interesting racetracks in it, but a lot of times if you just have races without issue, you usually can get through that one. And it gets a little harder each time. And we're not going in with a lot of playoff points like I would like to have, but we have a few, and there's really not anyone has a whole bunch more outside of the first few cars and obviously the 15 that the regular season champion will get. But yeah, it doesn't mean that that's a cakewalk for them either. We've seen that team get knocked out before as well. So, we just got to keep our head down and dig and do our own thing. Focus on what makes the 22 team work. We've gone on those runs before during the playoffs, and it's something that we've kind of come accustomed to for the most part at Team Penske. So hopefully we can bring a little bit more to the table. And it seems like our cars are getting faster here recently, so I'm excited about that part. It seems like our cars are getting more and more competitive, and we're starting to peak at the right time. So seems like it's a little sooner than last year, which is good. I hope that's the case. Because if you look at the 12 last year, it really wasn't in the first round did they look any better. It was really as they got to the second, the third round is when it really started to show that their speed picked up, and we were just too late, right? We were already knocked out at that point. So, you just got to survive long enough to make sure the speed's there when it matters.
All right, we'll go to Mark. Do you have a microphone? Oh, Seth, go ahead.
Seth Ayer, Kicking Tires. Joey, in his 3 years in Cup so far, how much have you seen Harrison Burton grow as a driver, and does he remind you of your early days?
In some ways, yes and no. I definitely see some similarities there. Harrison, I think everyone's said a lot of good things about Harrison this week. But I'd say as a person probably is what stands out the most to me about his character throughout the last 3 years. I get to witness it firsthand. Not many people get to see that. I sit next to him on the airplane, when we get done with every race, if we're not driving like this weekend, but most of the time I sit next to him, and there's a lot of emotions after a race. Typically I have a hard time dealing with a lot of them, to try to get over it quickly, and he always seems to have an upbeat attitude. It always impresses me. I'm like, man, he's happy. Now, I'm sure it affects him. He just has a way of dealing with these things really, really well, and he really lets that attitude go through his whole team, right? It's something that, as a leader, it's hard to do, right? Because you care so much and you get frustrated. It's hard to keep a positive attitude on everything you do. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But as a driver, your emotions, your reactions radiate through the whole team. where he does always an amazing job at staying positive and upbeat and keeping everybody, ready for the next weekend. And I think that's why everyone was so excited to see him win last week. There's not many times in my career can I actually say I was like brought to tears of joy for watching someone else win. You know what I mean? And actually seeing that last week and seeing Jeff in there with him, that was like one of the coolest things I've seen in our sport.
All right, we'll go Mark and then up to Bob.
Mark Garrow, PRN. First, Joey, starting the playoff at Atlanta, is that a start with a wild card race? I mean,
yes, it is.
and how do you feel about that to kick things off?
I'm honestly not a huge fan of super speedways in the playoffs. I get we got to have, a variety of all the racetracks within our playoff schedule. I think one's plenty, just because we know what speedway racing is. I'm gonna look at last week, right? I mean, just things could be going well, and then everyone ends up in a wad, right? I mean, and it's I say look at last week. Look at the last 20 of them. Okay, they all look the same, right? The guys running up front have a chance to win, and all of a sudden they're in the infield care center, and you guys are talking to us there. It just happens over and over and over again. So I don't like that can ruin someone's championship run because of something someone else did. Right? I look at our situation last week. Nothing I could have done. If that's in the playoffs, and that keeps you from winning a championship, well, that's pretty frustrating. You put yourself in that position and think about that. And I can't think of anything I'd rather have done, right? I'm leading the bottom lane with 7-8 to go. Where else would I rather be? So I don't really know how to handle that better. And it'll happen again. You go to Talladega, right? The same things are going to happen when we go there to Atlanta, possibly. Maybe not Atlanta as much as of a wild card, but it still can be. We've seen some big wrecks there recently, so yeah, it's just it's interesting.
You talked about the variety. Round one, Atlanta Speedway, Watkins Glen Road Course, Bristol Short Track. What do you think of that 3-race package overall to begin the playoff in round one?
Yeah, I mean, Bristol sounds like the one that is the most predictable, but it's not now. If you guys remember last time we went there, tires were out really fast, and nothing's going to be different. So you got to assume it's going to look the same with a lot of tire wear. And when you think of it from that lens, boy, they're all kind of wild cards that first round. So and Watkins Glen's still going to be a lot different than what it was last time we were there with the rumble strips through the bus stop being different, and obviously that's going to take something different of your car. The tires sounds like it's going to wear out there too. So a lot of unknowns and things that we'll have to figure out as a team really fast with no practice, essentially, right? Limited amounts of practice where you can't adjust anything to your car substantially to try to combat some of the things you may be fighting with the tire wear scenario at both Watkins Glen and Bristol. So hope you make the right decisions before you get there and then try to figure out how to execute with it once you get there.
All right, Bob.
Bob Hawkers, Fox Sports. Have you talked to NASCAR at all about cars getting airborne this week? Have you heard anything, and do you have any thoughts or things that they can do?
I didn't talk to him about it. I don't really know what you do. To me, I don't have an engineering degree, just have an RCD, and I would say that a floor underneath the car that we have, a big pan, when it catches wind, it's like a kite. And we've seen that happen a lot with this car, and until that comes off, I don't think there's a way to keep them on the ground. So I think one of the best options probably would be to put a splitter back on the thing and take the underbodies off and go back to where we were. Not that we had great success on keeping the old car on the ground all the time, but gosh, it seems like we've seen more cars go up here recently than ever. So I got to think that that's kind of the only thing you can do to fix it. You can't put more weight in the car. That's not going to be the answer, because then the wrecks will be bigger, so you don't want to do that. So I think kind of the only option is to take that diffuser off.
All right, we're going to go to Al.
Hey, Joey, Al Pearson, Auto Week. As a two-time champion, you're probably more qualified to speak of this than anybody. Only 3 times in the past 15 years has the champion been the winningest driver of that season. 3 times out of 15. The other 12 champions did not win the most races. Does that seem odd to you? Do you think the system could be tweaked or changed a little bit to reward winning more, or is it okay like it is?
I mean, it already is really biased towards winning already. I mean, you think about the old, even the chase, right, back in the day, or even before that, it's about consistency as much as winning. Now, yeah, consistency pays, and for your reasons you said, but winning in the playoffs is a must. You have to win. So I think it's already really biased towards winning more than ever. It's kind of odd that it's like that. It's such a long season, though, and it's really about – I'd like to see how many championships have been won with the most wins in that 10-week span, right, in the last 10 weeks of the season. Because I would assume that the majority of the champions have the most wins in those last 10 weeks because you got to win one. Right, you're going to have to win Phoenix, right, for the most part. I mean, it seems like all but one time, so most likely that. And you're probably going to have to win another one throughout that to get to the next round, maybe, if your back's up against the wall. So it's pretty biased to winning, in my opinion.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go Pete.
Hey, Joey. Pete
Hey, sorry.
Iacobelli with the AP. Do you feel like you and your team have installed a pretty good plan heading into the playoffs since your win? And what's your mindset here at Darlington? Do you kind of, because it's the last race of the regular season, do you stay out of the fray because it can get crazy at the end here too? Or do you, because it's the Southern 500, is that the goal?
This is Southern 500. This one's on the bucket list, man. This is one you want to win. Darlington's a place you always want to win no matter what it is, but the Southern 500 adds a little bit to it. One of the 3 to 4 crown jewel events of the year. So yeah, you go for it. I don't know, and it doesn't matter to me if it wasn't the Southern 500. I'm going out there to win. That's our goal. So you're in it. You're out there going for it no matter what. So doesn't really change much, considering it's the playoffs next week and all that type of things. You still race to win every week.
All right, we're going to come up front to Mike.
Mike Hembry, Auto Week. Joey, there's been some talk lately about the relative driving talents of guys like Kyle Larson, Max Verstappen. How do you feel about what would happen if a top NASCAR guy went to F1 or a top F1 guy came to NASCAR? You think one would do better than the other?
I don't know if I can answer that without doing it. The cars are so different, and the racing is so different. It's going to be one thing, making speed, and I think either one will eventually figure out how to make speed out of the car. But you look at the discipline of what F1 is, and the way they race, right? Their strategy and the way they communicate, it's so different. The cars, the little nuances, the little things, right? So different than our cars. But then you think of, put them in the draft at Daytona, or put them at a restart here at Darlington, and the racing's so different that it would take a long time to learn that. Outside of just making the car go fast and knowing how the car changes throughout a run and those type of things, it's not that one's more talented than the other. I'm sure there's amazing race car drivers in both series, 100%. But they've been doing that for so long that it's unfair to think that either one of us can switch and be competitive automatically. Like, no way. On a road course, it might be the closest for them to have a chance to be in the hunt. But you put one of them on an oval, they're not going to have a clue what to do. That's not a dig to F1 in any way. I'm just saying it's so different that it would take years to try to convert. We've seen that, and we've seen a few F1 guys try to convert into NASCAR drivers, and a few of them successful, but it took a long time to do that. It wasn't automatic. Juan Pablo, right? Maybe the first one that comes to mind. It took him a while to become competitive in NASCAR, and he's an amazing talent, right? So it's just different. It's what'd you do growing up and what'd you do for the last 15 years. Probably going to be better at it.
You like to try it?
I'd try it, yeah. Sign me up. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to.
All right, we're going to go Dustin and then Greg.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. In terms of talking about the upcoming playoffs for the changes to the tracks, but also the tire changes and things like that, how much is less in a driver's hand, or is it putting more in a driver's hand in these playoffs with all these changes?
I don't think it's any different, more or less. It's not more or less. It is different, though, is what I guess I should say. Just because you have to be ready for the unknown more than ever this year going into the playoffs. It's just a lot of things that can happen that we can't call yet. I feel like in the past the playoffs were a little bit more predictable, but this first round is very, very unpredictable on how it's going to work out. So you just got to be quick and ready to adapt, because we don't really know exactly how the first three are really going to play out, especially outside of Atlanta. Those other two, you really have no idea how they're going to play out, and you just got to be ready.
Last week into the race, we saw a situation where a really young driver, Parker Retzlaff, in a different manufacturer, pushes another manufacturer to the victory. Faced some criticism or questions about that. As a veteran, obviously I'm not going to say you've been in a situation like that in your career, because your career path was different, but is there advice, or is there anything that you can, or what would you give to somebody like that who has gone through a situation, a very unique situation, and kind of facing some different questions?
Yeah, I'm too far removed from that organization to know what they talk about, right? Like, did they have a pre-race meeting? Did they specifically talk about that stuff? Like, coming to an end of a race, is that how that works over there? Like, I don't know. I just know how Ford works out things. I don't know what. There's a couple people back there that maybe can answer it, but they're looking at me like, say the right thing. I don't know what you guys do over there, okay? I don't know what you guys do. Whatever you do behind closed doors is your deal, man. But for us, we try to talk about as many things as possible and different things, but you just never can call exactly how these races are going to play out. So I don't know if he was put in a tough spot or not, but obviously his questions afterwards, you have to talk to him. I can't really speak to it.
All right, Greg.
Hi, Joey. Owen Johnson, Cupscene.com. Next year's schedule came out this week, now with more tracks in North Carolina, including Rockingham. Do you think the schedule does a good job of appealing to more traditional fans, or is there anywhere you'd like to see the series go in the future?
Oh, when you think of the racetracks that we've resurrected here recently, North Wilkesboro, Rockingham now, are you going to Bowman Gray next year? Boy, I mean, it's kind of cool. And I think the Truck Series is perfect for that, right? And you even think about, when the Truck Series started, or even the Xfinity Series, right? And they raced at Hickory, and they raced at some of these, really old, cool tracks. I think it's neat that they can bring those tracks back to life. I mean, Rockingham's awesome. It's one of the best racetracks we've ever had. I've always enjoyed racing there. So it definitely looks like a fun event. And anything we can do to bring those tracks back and not let them just grow weeds through them anymore. I mean, that's the cool part.
All right, we'll take one final question. Go ahead.
Chase Folsom, frontstretch.com. The trucks are going to go to Lime Rock Park next year, and as a Connecticut native, is it cool to see that on the schedule, and would you consider running there?
I would. I think it's Easter weekend, though, isn't it? Isn't it when they race there?
Rockingham's Easter.
Oh, Rockingham's there? Okay, I missed that then. I mean, I'd like to. I mean, I think it'd be cool to race in Connecticut. I don't really know. I don't even know where it lines up to where the Cup stuff is. I didn't go over to schedule that great yet. But yeah, I mean, I think it's outside of me running it. It's awesome that NASCAR is going back to Connecticut, and even at the truck level. I mean, it's there's a lot of race fans up there, I grew up there, and I remember going to so many different garages, and there's always NASCAR calendars and NASCAR, memorabilia of some sort. Modified racing up there is huge. There's a ton of race fans in New England that I feel like gets overlooked a lot because our sport sometimes is looked at as a southeastern sport, but it's so nationwide at this point, and New England has some diehard race fans. You go to Loudon and you see it, but it's cool to have some more racing up there for them for sure. Yep.
All right, Joey, thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck this weekend.
Thank you, guys.
It's Atlanta Summer Week.
It's the same day as Summer Atlanta.
It's a Sunday.
Oh.
It's a Sunday.
Yeah.
So Atlanta's on Saturday night, Lime Rock is Sunday.
Oh, you'd have to fly up there.
It says Lime Rock Saturday as well.
That's a tough one.
All right, there's the checkered flag. Great job, driver.